Hello. Welcome to the F3 podcast where we discuss all things that pertain to faith, family, and finances. And remember, no subject is off limits. We are your hosts today. I am the lowly,
Oh my goodness.
the humble, Dr. Lionel M. Blair Sr., and I'm sitting next to the grand,
Oh my goodness,
the
y'all.
grand sainted mother herself, Saint Jasmine the First, my wonderful wife, whom I have the privilege of being married to, Dr. Jasmine Blair. We got a good one for you today, as
Listen,
always.
welcome everybody to the F3 podcast. If this is your first time with us, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time we premiere a new episode and take us with you on the go. You can find us where your favorite podcasts are streamed. Welcome to season 2. I want to take some time and give y'all an official welcome to season 2.
Season 2.
You see, we got a new setup. Like I told y'all, last season was a warm up, just so y'all can get used to us before y'all decide to cancel us. Now y'all love us, so here we go. But listen, we got a new setup because I was a little cramped in that space, so we got some new
She was
space.
cramped at my desk, y'all.
Yes, my creativity couldn't flow like
I
that.
keep a lot of stuff on my desk. My desk is like real messy.
They got different kinds of geniuses, and then
Yeah.
they got the kind that yeah, I can't do all that.
Her desk like be all neat and stuff. Mine be all messy and chaotic.
So anyway, so we had to get some different space so we could really, spread our creative wings. I needed the space. So I'm loving the space. I'm loving the change. I'm excited. Shout out to y'all that have been rocking with us since season 1. Y'all have been great. Y'all been showing us much love and support. And y'all been putting out a lot of topics. So listen, if you've got a show topic, be sure to click that link where you can find out how you can support the podcast. You can also drop us a voicemail if you've got a question or a topic you want us to answer here on air. Remember, no subject is off limits. If your pastor won't preach it, we'll probably talk about it here. So make sure
Yeah.
you ask your question so we can answer it here for you on the air. And shout out to those of you that have been leaving comments and showing your love and support and really dialoguing and getting involved in the F3 community. We definitely appreciate that.
Yes.
So we're going to be digging into some deeper topics this season. Last season, like I said, was it was a little taste, but this season we're bringing the full entree. So I'm looking forward to everything that y'all are going to hear. As y'all know, we love God, but we're going to keep it real for y'all up here. And that's
Yeah.
definitely true
For real.
because nobody owns this platform.
Nobody owns this. I say whatever the heck I want to say up here. All right, y'all in church land be trying to regulate folk and want to shut folk down and blackball them because they say something you don't like. The same thing y'all trying to do to Kanye.
Oh Lord.
Okay, same thing y'all trying to do to Kanye. Y'all be trying to do to us preachers. Close the door. Shut them down, baby. You can't close the door on me.
You can't
Okay.
close the door you don't own. That's
Yeah, for real. You don't run this right here. Just thought we put that out there.
So, but let's get into our topic today. So today's topic is process or paycheck ministry credentials. And we got to talk about this
Yeah.
because for those of you that don't know, there's a business side to ministry, and that's a real thing. So when it comes to, a church or a ministry or whatever, hiring a pastor or, bringing in an associate pastor or department lead, one of the things that's looked at is credentials. What type of training have you had, but more importantly, what school did you go to? Where did you graduate from? Where have you worked before? Now we're talking about ministry work, not secular work. And those things factor into how much, how qualified, quote unquote. Yeah, it does factor into how much you make, but how qualified somebody is for a position. So the thing that we want to really talk about some of the different dynamics of this, because some people got the credentials on paper, but they lack the actual processing and ministry experience. Like you went to school and you got a degree, and that's great. And according to the rubric and the structure, you should be making a certain amount of money,
Right.
but you've never scrubbed the toilet. Then you got people on the other side, so maybe they've been processed and they've been faithful, and because they've been present, now they get put in positions where they're making 6 or even 7 figures, but they lack the competency and the credentials to be making that kind of money. So you've got some errors on both extremes of this continuum. So we're going to talk about this today. So I'm going to kick this over to you to get us started. What do you, when you hear this and process versus paycheck versus process, ministry credentials, what would you say should be somebody's credential? If they're going to be hired in, let's say as a department lead, whether they're, oh, we love to call everybody a pastor and ministry. Oh, the worst praise and worship pastor. Where's that in the Bible? There's no praise and worship pastor. And don't y'all dare say Lucifer was the praise and worship, the minister of music. Y'all love that lie. There won't no church for Lucifer to be the minister of music in. Now, if you read it correctly as sanctuaries, but he was not no minister of music. Stop lying.
He was an administrative officer in God's government.
And that's why every time the minister of music leave y'all church, y'all get mad and want to preach about Lucifer. Trash. Stop it. But let me hush. Go ahead.
Lucifer didn't have time to be no praise and worship leader. This man was a cherub. Well, I'm not gonna get into that up here. That's a specialized teacher for another setting.
Different. Yeah, but okay. So when you think about ministry credentials,
she eat popcorn.
Yes, it's popcorn. Good. When you think about ministry credentials, right? You think about somebody being qualified, whether they're going to lead a department or be associate pastor. We're not even on senior leadership today. That's for something else. What are some things just off the top of your head would you say will be qualities that somebody should have if they're going to be, let's call this a third chair leader, a department lead? What are some qualities that one should have?
I think you should have experience in servanthood.
Okay.
Because when you're in those departments, you're serving another man's vision. So there's nothing worse than having someone serve your vision with ambitions for their own. So people who are experienced in serving, people who love serving, they don't have no ambitions for their own vision. And for some of you that may sound bad, but everybody's not called to have their own. I'm sorry. And I think this is like a spiritual plague in the church.
Yes.
Of pride, where people feel like I have to have my own. If I'm going to be a pastor, I might as well be a pastor of my own. If I'm going to be an apostle,
y'all don't want that.
I might as well be an apostle over my own. If I'm going to be a prophet, then I'm just going to have my own platform. A lot of people, we're getting away from the art of servanthood, the art of following. We making following a bad thing. I love what one of our daughters say, Apostle Tara. She said, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with being a copycat as long as you're copying the right cat." And we don't like to copy the right cat. So when it comes to being staffed on someone's ministry, you one of the things I believe is that you got to give it all ambition for your own.
Okay, so I want to pause you right there because you literally just said one thing and went into another thing. So before we get to that, let's talk about the servanthood piece, because that's key. A lot of people are entering into ministry spaces in leadership departments without mastering servitude, and that is a key. That is a key. If you've never swept the floor or cleaned the toilet, that's concerning to me. Because see, understand, yes, I mean, we all grown. Most of it, honestly, I can't even say that because there's grown people that don't know how to clean the toilet. There's a level of humility. Stop, I'm for real. There's a level of humility that is developed in those early serving lessons.
Yeah, for real.
Cleaning toilets. I was watching TV the other day, and it's rare that I watch TV. But I was watching TV the other day, and, the girl was upset on the TV because, she was in some kind of training. Well, you had me scrubbing the toilet. That was to teach you humility. So you mean secular folks understand that scrubbing toilets teaches humility, but church folks don't?
Yeah.
There's a lesson of humility because it reminds you first and foremost that while There's a business side to ministry. You may be hired into a position where you're receiving a salary or a paycheck. You're still a servant leader. You're like a servant employee. You don't get to dictate what this, that, and the third. You're still serving a community of people.
Right.
This is why we call people that work in, law enforcement. And so these are civil servants, people who work in these fields. They're doing a job, but the primary purpose of that job is not their paycheck, is to serve. And when we lose sight of that, this is how we have entitled brats that will take an opportunity at a church just for a paycheck. Don't like the vision. Don't like, hold on. Don't even like the pastor of the senior pastor of the vision. You're not in any way, shape, or form taking that job because you plan to serve that vision or to serve that community of people. You're taking a job for the check to see how long you can put up with it till you find your next big gig that's going to pay you more, or at least pay you the same. You should never take a ministerial job where you are not willing to serve that leader, the vision, and the community of people.
Right.
Let's start there. Because if you do, you're doing it for the wrong motive. I'm sorry. This is where you have to really find out what your integrity is. There are some jobs you have to refuse to take just because the money is good.
Right.
But we're finding a lot of this in ministry now.
Yeah.
You taking a job because the money's good, can't stand the pastor, don't like the people, always griping and complaining. Why are you there? I'd rather for you go work at Walmart or somewhere else. You see what I'm saying? Than to work in ministry. There's another level of moral integrity that comes along with you take. That's not a position you take just because you need to pay your bills. There's plenty of other jobs out here that you can do.
That reminds me of musicians, church musicians. I've seen some play for 3 and 4 churches on Sunday mornings. You are a hustler. You know.
You about to say a hoe.
No. Some of them are, but
a lot of them are, but that's another conversation.
But you are a hustler. I've seen guys try to live off of that. And here it is, the pastor paying you $150 to $300,
and that's the low end, because really it's about $400, $500, $600.
Yeah. Depending on how church the big it is.
A Sunday.
Yeah, depending on how big the church is. Yeah, if it's a big church, they get like $500. And you still going around playing for other churches and all of that. You are a hustler. You need
got
a
people
job.
that got jobs that's not even making $500 a week.
No, and my thing is,
and you can do that and still work another job, and you making like $1,500 to $3,000 a month.
Yeah, and I'm not against a church paying a musician.
No,
I'm not against anybody getting paid, but a lot of these guys, they be demanding salaries the pastor's not getting. If anybody get paid before the senior leader, that is a problem. If the senior leader has to pay a musician, but then he or she is not getting paid, that's a problem that I have. What a lot of y'all musicians need to do is take your skills and try to, apply them elsewhere. There are people that make music for movies. Okay, they're looking for people like that. Okay, maybe you need to apply your skills there.
If you're that skilled, do work in the school system, teach classes. You can teach on the college level. You can teach lessons. You see what I'm saying? There are options out there, but
because a lot of these guys, they can't point to one man that says that's my leader, that's my pastor, or that's my bishop, or that's my apostle, or whoever.
And you want to tie it back into this. They cannot point to one ministry and say, this is the vision I'm serving. That's the problem. It's not that you're trying to make a living, because you really shouldn't make it that way. There are other things you can do, but you're playing for 4 and 5, 6 churches, and you can't point to a single one. This is the vision I'm serving. This is the community of people that I'm serving. This is the leader that I'm serving, where I'm growing and I'm being poured into, as well as me serving, because you're not just doing them a favor. A job is a task done in exchange for pay. So if they're paying you, you're not doing them a favor. You're getting paid, but you're not actually serving the vision. And that's what makes a difference. Now, it's different if you're having a conference or something like that. You want to bring in a different musical gift. But many of these people are going to 5 three, four, five, six churches every week, and they have not committed to serving a single vision.
Mm-mm. No, and then you,
That's
you
all I mean.
and then when you can tell, a lot of them ain't straight because during the sermon they get up and they go outside.
A lot of them be late. Like you come late, then you go outside. You leave. You're getting $500, $600, $700, and you're leaving before the service is even over. So you're not even staying the whole service.
Right.
There's no commitment.
Right.
No commitment.
It's a shame.
Now, how would it look if a guest preacher came and preached, and then they saying the closing remarks and praying for people? The guest preacher go ahead, get up and leave before the service is over. We wouldn't invite them back, right?
No, indeed.
But we let musicians do it. Why? So this whole thing about serving is key. Now, I want you to go into the next thing that you were talking about qualifications of you being over a department or something like that, or being hired as an associate pastor, assistant pastor, that you lack ambition. You can't have any of that selfish ambition of always wanting your own someday. Talk about that.
Yeah. You and I have seen this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When you're serving another man's vision, you can't have your own.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you still have ambitions for your own while you're serving another, then that vision that you're serving is going to be a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that you're not going to have your heart into it. You're going to serve that vision in the wrong spirit, the wrong motive. Some people are there, but they're not there.
Ooh.
They're there, but their heart is somewhere else.
Mm.
And these are people, they end up breaking rank on a staff. They end up equalizing with the pastor or the senior leader, or they end up causing division and schisms.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have ambitions for their own. So that's their end game, their own. And let's say if God is showing you that you're gonna have your own or whatever, like you need to submit that to your leader and let your leader process you in that. Because most likely, if they're hearing from God, they're going to hear something similar. But they're going to hear more so the timing. Galatians 4, an heir, as long as he's a child, is no different from a servant, even though he be Lord of all, but is under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the Father. You don't determine your own time. It's a leader that does that for you. So when it comes to, again, serving another man's vision, if you're doing it just for the paycheck or just for the one up or whatever, you're not going to be faithful, and you're not going to put your heart into it at all.
Yeah.
And you're going to view this as a means to an end. And that leads to bad motives.
Yeah, it's like a job. I'm finna go to this job again. I'm finna go to this church again. Is that really the attitudes you should have? But you know what, though? Excuse me. Something key in what you said about people waiting to the appointed time to have their own. Can I be honest? I think a lot of y'all lying.
Yeah.
A lot of y'all lying. God is not slow. The Lord can't be telling all these people that they're supposed to have their own ministry.
It wasn't even like that among the apostles.
Some of y'all are serving a vision, and eventually your time is God sending you somewhere else to serve another vision.
Right.
God is not telling this many, but they lie. God can't be telling it. All the churches we already got. How God gonna keep telling 10,000 people to start their own ministry every year? That don't even make good sense.
And I know statistically, a lot of pastors quit every year. But some of them need to quit.
Some of them should have never been.
Some of them should have never started.
Sit and need to repent.
And see, I believe what God is doing is, I believe He's thinning out the herd with a lot of this stuff. Especially with the pastorate, because I believe that there's gonna come a time where God gonna put the pastorate in its rightful place. But anyway, that's a different topic. That's a different topic. But when God calls you to something, that don't mean you're supposed to be the first chair in that thing. If you automatically assume the first chair, then that's pride. But see, we also got to reteach this right.
Because you know what, ministries as a whole are always teaching, your appointed time.
Yeah,
And this is why people are staying in ministry with the understanding everybody has an appointed time they're going to just go off and do their own thing. No, we got to start teaching people. For some of y'all, your appointed time is in a department furthering the vision of that ministry,
right,
or a portion of that vision, or eventually somewhere else doing the same thing.
right.
For a lot of y'all, your appointed time is not your own. So back to process or paycheck. What are some other credentials that you
Hmm.
think are important for somebody who is a departmental leader?
You got to be coachable.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be coachable because you're coming into someone else's thing, right? Something that God has given someone else. And yes, you're bringing your skill set, you're bringing your expertise and your competence. That's why you've been appointed. At least I hope so. But there's a if they have a way that you supposed to do it, you're supposed to take your skills and apply it their way.
5 words that pissed me off. Well, at my last church.
I don't care about your last
I'm like,
church.
is it last church?
Respectfully.
Woo! This is not your last church.
Yeah, respectfully, I don't care about your last church.
You're here for a reason.
In this regards here, you know, I don't want to hear about your last church. People like that normally give us trouble.
Well, at my last
Well, at my
church.
last ministry, this,
At
this,
my
this,
la-
and this, and this. Well, this ain't your
Okay,
last
your
ministry.
last ministry that God told you to leave and come here.
Right,
Let's sit with that for a minute.
right. So each ministry is different, and I think too we bring our baggage from our previous ministries
Oh yeah.
onto our current ministries, and then this is why the pastor and the ministry end up suffering for it
Mm-hmm.
because you bring your baggage. And don't get me wrong, you can bring your experience. But you got to be willing to convert and submit that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
For further cultivation. Because you should never stop learning. Period.
That part.
You should never stop learning. Your last covering will be like your current covering will be like your last.
Exactly.
So yeah, you got to be coachable. You got to be willing to do things differently than from how you're used to doing it. And some people they can't break that mold, and that's
No,
why
they
they end
can't.
up staggering a whole ministry or a whole staff, or they end up disrupting the order of things because they don't want to comply
Mm-hmm.
with the standards of the current ministry.
Mm.
And again, that's pride. I think this is how it should be, and there's a time and a place to communicate. You know, hey, I did this at my last ministry. I know it don't work here, but for me, it's easier to accomplish it this way.
Exactly.
And if the leaders say, "Well, I appreciate that, but I really rather it be accomplished this way," then you just gonna have to do it their way
And that's the end of it.
because they are the visionary. You understand? They are the visionary. They see a specific way that God wants it done. You know, and it's not even the fact that people being mean or anything like that. People ain't being mean or anything like that. It's just this is what God has entrusted them with. You don't understand the pressure of that first chair seat. Okay, the pressure that comes from God on that first chair seat. You don't understand that. So you just think the leaders being difficult. No, 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 no. You got to do it a certain way because the kingdom need to be presented a certain way.
Exactly. And then people get mad, they feelings hurt. Well, they don't want to listen to me. It's not that deep.
Because really, a bad staff can ruin a ministry.
Oh yeah.
It ain't the pastor a lot of times that can ruin a ministry. Because y'all will forgive a pastoral mistake. Some of y'all, but a staffing mistake has greater impact.
Many of the churches that I've been to where I've had an unpleasant experience, somebody being snarky and nasty with me, somebody talking to me in any old kind of way, it's been somebody's staff member. And I can guarantee you those pastors would be shocked. Who them? No. It's always a staff member, not the pastor. Somebody who either is not happy in the position that they're in, or they've been in become jaded and they've forgotten the first principle of servitude.
Right.
It's always a staff member. So those are the things to keep in mind. If you're listening and you're on a staff role, whether you volunteer or whether you're working part-time or what have you, keep that in mind because you represent the face of that ministry.
Yeah.
And somebody's encounter with you can play a role in how they interpret and view and see the whole ministry.
And see, this is why the helps and the administrations of a ministry need to go through, I believe, quarterly kind of training. You know, 'cause even if it's for certain things like reminders.
Yep.
Okay, you need to be reminded who you're representing, what you're there for, um, um, and why you're on staff,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're on a payroll or not. You know, but a lot of you all are opportunists, and you only do it for a paycheck. You only do it for a paycheck, and then some of you think that you should be credentialed. You know, well, I was there. Yeah, you was getting paid, and let the ministry go through a transition where you can't get paid as much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then you gonna move on to something else. I remember seeing this. You probably know where I'm about to go with this. There was this lady on the internet. Okay, and she was speaking against her former leader, right? Which I believe if any man, I believe if any man or woman has been an instrument in helping you in any kind of way,
Mm-hmm.
if they've been a blessing to you, you don't have a right to speak against them.
Yeah.
You know, and this lady went back there twice, mind you, but she was speaking against her former leader, and she made it evident that when she left, why she left. But then when she came back, she negotiated a higher pay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
To the place God told her to leave. That's
To
the
the
other
place
story.
God told you to leave, but then God told you to go back when that paycheck was higher. See, that's an opportunist.
That's why I said people be lying.
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine God? Son, leave that ministry. Son, go back, but make sure this time the salary is 10. You get a $10,000 increase.
Right.
Son, it's time to leave once again.
Right. When
Son,
you're offended.
return and this time ask him for a $50,000. Y'all just be lying on God. Stop.
Yeah. It's madness. And as I sat there and watched that lady, like I could have almost got sick to my stomach because I'm just like, okay, like things are I guess things are coming out about this leader, and you
And
take that
clearly you're pissed, but
and still offended and still talking about the man that was once a blessing to you.
Hot mess.
You are an idiot. Um,
But
I don't even want to breathe the same air as you. But it's yeah, for real. People like that, I don't even want to breathe the same air. If I seen her in a group of room of preachers, I walk out. But anyway, because I don't like stuff like that. But 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 if it's all about the money,
right.
or it's all about what you can get, even when we talk about ministry credentials.
Yep, we getting there next. Now, how much do you feel credentials when it comes to credentials versus processing and actual hands-on applied experience? Well, how much credentials? Because we've met pastors with credentials that can't preach worth they sought. I was preaching better than them at 17 than they are after having the church for 10 or 15 years, 4 5 years, because they got credentials. So they went and got credentials before they started the church, and I actually learned how to preach before I got credentials. So I'm like, this can't be the past. How long you been a pastor? You can't tell me I learned how to preach better from my pastor than you done learned after you done went to school and got this degree now. So when it comes to credentials and actual applied experience, What weight should we be giving these credentials? I want to hear from you.
People need to be traced, number one.
Hmm.
So I need to trace you back to someone legitimate who actually approves of you, that can attest to the fact that this particular man or woman
Hmm.
um, has been processed. They are approved of God. They are approved of me, and things like that. See, back to in biblical times, it was hard to run around calling yourself a prophet.
Hmm.
It was hard to run around calling yourself an apostle. Why? Because you were tested and tried.
Yeah.
If you came up and you was like, I'm a prophet, but you didn't come from none of the schools of the prophets,
Who sent you?
okay, like who you was examined. And
Exactly.
even if you bewitched people through sorcery, eventually a real prophet was going to come from one of them schools. Most likely the senior prophet was going to
Hmm.
come from that school, and they was going to address you
Yeah.
openly. They were going to address you openly, and they were going to tell the people not to fear you. You see what I'm saying? In New Testament times, like, you had to be tried. Paul had to go through a lot to be validated. Paul had to go through a lot to be validated as an apostle, because he had his personal experience with Christ.
Hmm.
But first of all, if it had not been for Barnabas,
Hmm.
he would not have been received by the apostles and by the church.
Hmm.
It took another one that was legitimate to validate his process and his experience with God, and still take him under his wing. Right? We're still talking about credentials. Right? We're still talking about credentials, because, see, credentials today is paperwork,
Hmm.
but they didn't have paperwork back then. All that paperwork stuff was added later, historically. Okay, still needed. Um, but at one point in time, them apostles ready to jack him up,
Mm.
because he was known for persecuting the church, and they had no real evidence of his change outside of Barnabas. So they already yoke him up and kill him.
Mm.
You know. And a lot of people was afraid of him for a long time until he had to be proven. You understand? So there needs to, when it comes to credentialing, we need to have evidence that you're no longer the same person you used to be.
Mm.
Okay. And we also need evidence that you have been properly processed by the correct individual.
Hmm.
Someone who's legitimate, not one of your little friends,
Oh,
not somebody who's illegitimate. Because, see, a lot of y'all credentials are crap. You got crap
crap
credentials
credential.
because it came from some rogue bastard, okay, who's just desperate to have notches under their belt.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying?
But even the ones that went to school, okay, you went to school, you got your degree in divinity. Just because you go pay for a degree doesn't mean somebody processed you. And I'm not against that. You went to school, you studied, you did your thesis, you did the hard work. Okay, you deserve a little bit of respect on it. But anybody can get a credential. You don't have to actually really be in ministry to go fill out an application and pay your tuition. There are people with degrees that have not even been on somebody's ministerial staff for a year.
Listen,
Well, so I got this degree. I got, a master's in pastoral leadership. I got a doctorate in, in theology. Okay, but you have not served somebody's vision for 18 months. You're a
right.
whole doctor of theology that you've never actually applied any of that in real ministerial service.
Mm. Come on
So
now.
why are you making 6 and 7 figures? Because you read some books, but you don't actually know how to tend to people's soul? Negative.
I know, I know some so-called leaders who have all these degrees and they no longer serve God.
Mm-hmm.
But they still trying to use them degrees as evidence of legitimacy.
Mm-mm.
So you got a degree, You got a doctorate in this, and you got a degree in pastoral counseling, but now Jesus never existed.
That don't even make good sense.
Hell is not real. Jesus never existed, um, and a bunch of other heretical stuff. Really, but your credentials make you valid. See,
I'm not against
and nowadays
credentials.
you can go
Go ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Nowadays you can go online and buy credentials, like without the process. Okay,
Hmm.
huh? You know, you can go. I can go online right now and make myself an archchief bishop, apostle, whatever I want to be. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I can go up there and be everything I want to be. All I got to do is pay for it. Pay my little $50. Bless God. Pay my little $50, and then there you go. You know, um, with no processing.
Mm.
But a lot of these guys though, they're being ordained by friends, not fathers.
That's it.
They're
That's a
being
different
ordained by
episode.
friends and big bros and stuff like that. But there's no father. There's no father. That's why in some traditional ordinations, you have chief consecrators and co-consecrators. The chief consecrator more so probably had a hand in that person's
In their
development.
development. Yes,
You see what I'm
exactly.
saying? And the co-consecrators are the ones that stand with the chief consecrator and be like, you trust it, you trust this person and their process. We trust you, so we're gonna stand with you and validate their
Hmm.
bishopric or their apostleship or whatever. You know, but see, a lot of y'all, see, the chief consecrator usually is a father figure of some sort.
Yeah.
You know, but nowadays our chief consecrator is our big bro. Our chief consecrator is not someone that we really submitted to or someone who had a
Mm-mm.
hand in
Mm-mm.
our development.
Mm-hmm.
Is not someone, and nowadays too, these guys who really do it correctly or take it seriously, they take you through a series of processes. They take you through what they call catechism classes and all that other stuff, before they would even ceremonially lay hands on you.
Yeah.
I remember recently I met one bishop. He just got consecrated here in Virginia. He said he was under evaluation for, like, I think he said either 2 years or 4 years. It was like either 2 years or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it was 2 years, it's still a while.
Yeah.
He was under evaluation, right? So 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 before you got consecrated, if you've never been under any kind of evaluation, any kind of processing, any kind of testing or whatever, and everything is just for convenience, and people just give you some paperwork because you asked for it.
You should be on evaluation for, I would say, 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, for real.
At least one.
Yeah,
Even a job give you a 12-month period where you're being watched.
right, right. It's crazy. You
You
know,
can't have a job watching people more than the church. Like,
no,
you had a little probationary period and you can't get in no trouble, and they, decide,
they
y'all.
have boot camp, and before you even go to the army, you got to go through boot camp. Why? Because you got to be conditioned for military life, and
Yeah.
you got to know what's required for when Uncle Sam call on you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Normally, when you join a job, depending on what job it is, you go through a probationary period. Even if you're becoming a manager,
Mm-hmm.
you go through a probation period. And in that probation period, you're not paid as much as you're about to be paid. You normally pay less, and you're normally under evaluation and training. See, that probation period is not just to restrict you, it's to train you also, and it's also to get you acclimated to the role you're about to fully come into. So it should be the same thing in ministry.
Mm.
It should be the same thing in ministry. You know, if the world understands this, surely the church should. But no, we just embrace anybody as whatever. Just recently I started asking folks questions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want me to back you on some credentials that I don't agree with, you know, because you got ordained by a bastard,
Woohoo.
I'm gonna tell you that that person is widely discredited.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, I love you, but you need a whole new set of credentials.
So, in closing, any closing remarks you got when it comes to process, paycheck, ministry credentials, people's ambitions, ministry as a job versus a true calling? What is your closing remarks? There's a lot you can say on this,
Yeah,
but we'll have to come back to this in
any
another
leader
segment.
that don't take you through any kind of process,
Irregardless of your
irregardless, is not worth their salt. I'm trying to tell you. Um, uh, I gotta mention this one last example. Just one.
We're trying to wrap the episode up.
I know,
Okay, go ahead, go ahead,
see,
go ahead.
it comes to mind.
Go ahead. Jesus.
I remember one time we had a musician that we knew, right? Started playing for us and everything. We knew this person personally, but we made him sit down for like what
6 weeks?
6 weeks, right? When he first came into the ministry, he thought he was just going to just start playing,
No.
and he was like, "I don't understand. Why is it? It's not that serious." I said, "No, I can't just. I don't care if you are my friend. I don't care if I do know you personally. I can't just bring you in and just stick you in a position with no processing,
Exactly.
no kind of processing." So for 6 weeks, he had to sit in the congregation with everybody else and worship with everybody else to music we had on a track.
Mm-hmm.
Worshiping the tracks before you start playing the keyboard. Okay, get some humility about yourself and worship on the track. We had to take them through a process. So a lot of y'all make the process easy because you know folk, and then some of y'all go to people that you know because they're not going to test you hard as a father would. Shame on you. So in closing with that, I say if anybody don't take you through a process, you need to be alarmed by that and find you some new leadership. I
In
digress.
closing, I want you to keep in mind, even if you do work in the ministry sphere, ministry is more than you can't treat this like working at McDonald's or working at corporate America.
Right.
Because the difference is, in addition to your paycheck, you're serving people in their faith in God's community. And what you say and do and how you navigate with people has a potential not just to hurt their feelings, but you could really cause somebody to stumble and be stifled in their faith. Have some integrity about yourself, regardless of how many zeros is behind them numbers. If you're not willing to serve that leader, that vision, and that community of people, you need to professionally exit stage left and go work slash serve at a ministry where you can actually do all three of those and sleep at night. So listen, we want to thank you all for joining us here on the F3 podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Hit that link to find out how you can become an avid supporter of our podcast and drop us your questions, comments, and show topics. Until next time on the F3 podcast, goodbye.